Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains in Missouri, USA. Today we're going to talk about a common problem with our old Breadbin Commodore 64s, that is, broken case parts. Let's have a look. So here's a typical example of a Breadbin Commodore 64. I've already taken the 3 screws out of the front. I'm going to tip this back and unplug the keyboard connector and the LED connector. And you can see I've got my 3 case screws right here. Set this bottom part aside. And we're going to concentrate on the top part on this particular case. Let me get you zoomed in here. Here is our top case turned upside down. And one of the most typical areas for breakage is these rear clips. You can see this one's snapped off, but these two are okay. We'll zoom in on that in just a second. And also, all these mounting post locations tend to split where the screw goes in, so we'll have a look at those in detail. Here is what an unbroken rear tab looks like. You can see it goes up and it has a hook that goes that way. And if we look at the broken tab, they usually snap off right like this. Here is a pretty typical example of what happens with the screw post on the top case. Over time, and from the screws being retightened or the case being jostled about too much, they tend to split open like this, and sometimes they'll crack. No doubt you've seen some similar breaks, and so you might be thinking, hey Bert, what do we do about it? How do we fix our cases? Well, I came up with a case saver kit just for that purpose. Before we jump into exactly how you use the kit, let's take a look at the difference in the cases, particularly the top case. The big differences are, in what I'm calling the Type 1 case, that the rear tabs are smooth on the inside. I'll cut in some close-ups of that. Type 1A cases have 2 wide tabs and a narrow tab, and Type 1B have 3 wide tabs. Other than that, they're the same. Type 2 cases have a recess in the tab here. All of these I've seen so far have 2 wide tabs and 1 narrow tabs, but how this recess is realized is a little different. On Type 2A cases, these tabs are similar to the Type 1 cases, but the ribs have been added and built out this way to add strength, which is a good thing. I haven't seen too many of these that have broken. On Type 2B cases, they did exactly the opposite. Instead of building the ribs out that way to add strength, they cut back this way, so you just basically have the ribs and this top piece right here, which is pretty weak. Now, I don't have one of these cases, but I sent a repair kit to GadgetUK, and I'll link in his video here too. And I'll cut in a couple pictures from his video to show that type of case. The third repair problem we're going to tackle is the bottom cases. Now in these, all these little mounting posts here tend to crack. And some of this is just to fatigue them being jostled around too much, and some of it's because there's a steel screw in there and the plastic shrinks over time and it can't fit on that screw anymore, so it just breaks. So got some repair parts for those too. And so far what I've seen is that all these mounting posts are the same on any Breadbin, so that's not a problem. The first thing we'll want to do when looking at repairing a top case is to go ahead and remove the keyboard to get it out of our way so we can inspect all the posts. Of course, that's not a very difficult thing to do. You just take out all the screws. You notice when I took this case apart originally, I put the screws from the bottom case back in these posts, but I'll need to go ahead and remove those now as well. One thing I will mention is that I've seen some people use a power screwdriver on these types of projects, and I wouldn't recommend that. It's way too easy to cross-thread the screws and wind up stripping out the holes or break the post because you have the torque on the screwdriver set too high. This doesn't take very much time to do this by hand, and you can do the job with much less chance of damage. Okay, so we'll set the keyboard aside there. Now on this particular case, these are all in really good shape. They're not even bulged out too much at the top, except for this one post, which is broken. So that's the one we're going to repair. Let me get my tools for that, and then we'll get started. So what I've got set out here is a small file and a package of the Castellated post sleeves that come in the kit. There's enough sleeves to do one whole case, and in this particular instance, I only need one of them. So when you buy one kit, you may actually wind up with enough parts to repair multiple cases. It just depends on how your case is broken or not. These are designed to fit over the post, and they are castellated, or slotted here. So they fit right down over the top, like so. Now this particular post is a little bigger on the top. Some of that's from being mushroomed from it being tightened, and some's from that break. Some of these posts tend to bulge out or mushroom a little on the top, so you need to take a file and just file slightly like that, and you can see I can fit that right down on there now, and it goes even with the top. On our broken one over here, it is mushroomed out like that, and that won't quite go down, so I'm going to do a little filing work on that. You could also use, sandpaper, an emery board for, designed to do fingernails, that type of thing. This post, the one that wasn't split, took just a few seconds worth of effort to file down just the top edge there to get the sleeve to fit. This one that was split in a little worse shape, I had to do a little more filing on. And now it fits properly and it's flush with the surface. The next step will be to wipe this down with some alcohol and wipe the inside of the sleeve with alcohol and let it set around long enough for the alcohol to completely dry, and then we'll mix up some epoxy to glue that on there. Okay, I've taken some of my denatured alcohol and put it in this little cup here. And the first thing I'll do is take the sleeve, make sure it's nice and clean on the inside. I'll do the same thing with the post. Okay, now we'll give this several minutes to completely dry that alcohol out. Here we have a top case. Now this is a Type 2 top case. It has the tabs with the recess in them. And this particular one is what I'm calling the 2A. It is where they built these ribs out. So it's like the Type 1 cases, but they added this extra stiffening rib here. Here is our broken tab. What I'm going to repair this with is the Type 2A repair kit, which comes with. Now, whereas the sleeves, the post sleeves, are CNC machined out of ABS, these repair tabs are actually 3D printed out of PLA plastic. And the idea here is that they will slip right down into that groove or notch on the back of it and self-align, but first we need to cut this right off flush with the case. You could use some sharp cutters for that, or a knife, etc. I think what I'm going to do is score this with a knife so we can try to get a nice clean cut or break. Okay, I've got this whittled down just about flat. And I'll take a piece of sandpaper here. Just to make sure that is flat. And for good measure, on the gluing surface on the back of here, I'm just going to slightly rough that up with a file. I'm not really trying to remove any material. I just want to rough up the surface, which gives the glue something to bite into. Then we'll test fit our repair part. Yeah, it sits on there real nice. Now this particular one is a little long for this case. Some of these cases have a smaller top part. So I'll just nip a little off the bottom of that, and I think on the new batch of these, when I print them, I'll make them about 3 millimeters shorter to avoid that. Okay, I trimmed just a little off the bottom and sanded it down so it fits this shorter case top, and you see that slips right on there now. It's in the perfect position. One other trick with either these replacement tabs or the original tabs is to slightly round the corners over like this. On the actual case, I tend to use a knife or the little file, but having a slightly rounded edge helps the case slide together much simpler. Now our repair tab fits in there quite nicely, and the little ledge on here lets it align at the right height. Now we just need to clean up those meeting surfaces with some alcohol, let the alcohol dry, and epoxy that together. So, using my alcohol and a Q-tip again, and I'm going to clean up all the gluing surfaces. Now I'll do the gluing surfaces on the tab too. One thing to watch out with, you don't want to get just, flood 3D printed parts with alcohol, because they can be somewhat porous and it might take a while for all that to evaporate out of there. So just slightly damp, give it a wipe to get any oil from your fingers off of it, that type of thing. Okay, we went handheld here for a minute, so it might be a little shaky. What happens on the bottom cases is these mounting posts tend to crack, and the screws won't hold and the board flops around. What we're going to repair this with is some CNC machined replacement posts that are made out of natural ABS. Now the top is narrow to match the post diameter, and the bottom is wider, which gives you plenty of gluing area. And the hole inside is the correct size to match the screw hole. And the kit also comes with a drill bit, which you can use to align the post with a little divot that's left over when we remove the factory post. And if you happen to get some glue that squeezes up through the middle, you can remove any excess glue very carefully with the drill bit after it's cured. The easiest way to remove a broken post like this is to get some side cutters and just give it a chop like that. I use some larger ones there to start with. Then I'll go to these smaller, sharper ones and get it as flush to the bottom case as I can. That really does a good job, and it gets it down just about flush. Now we can take a bit of sandpaper. We want to sand that flush and get about a 1/2 inch or 14 millimeter diameter area around there scuffed up a little too, which will help the glue stick to the replacement post. There we go. Got that nicely cleaned off of there. Now your kit also comes with a good quality number 39 drill bit, which is the size of hole that is in the post. And it's used to center the post over the existing hole, and you might wind up with some flashing in your hole there, which you can very carefully just clean out of there with the drill bit. Now by putting the drill bit through the hole in the post, and it's a tight fit, so don't be surprised, We can line that up like so, and push it down, and we'll get our post aligned where it's supposed to be. Now what I'm going to do is clean these up with some alcohol, and we'll let the alcohol dry, and we'll go ahead and epoxy everything. Okay, let's get to epoxying that on there. Now I'm using some Defcon plastic water. This works really good. You can use any good quality epoxy that's suitable for plastic, and you want to make sure that you're getting a good quantity of epoxy. You can't mix really small amounts of epoxy. It just doesn't work. You don't get enough to have it set up properly. I'm just using a screwdriver here, and then I'll clean the screwdriver up when I'm done all over again. Okay, now we've got a pretty good mixture going here. Okay, I'm just going to smear some of this all around the post. I can try to push a little in the crack there. Again, we'll slip that sleeve over there. Push it down till it's flush with the top. And then I'm just going to smear around that extra little bit of epoxy that oozed out. Now, if you have a screw hole that's stripped out, you can take something like a paper clip and put some epoxy on the paper clip and smear that into the threads. Then once the epoxy's cured, you can take the drill bit that's included in the kit and very carefully run it down there to make sure the hole is the correct size to accept the screw. Okay. So again, I'm just going to take a little epoxy, smear in the crack here on the face of the part. Do the same thing here. Make sure there's some on that lip right there. Push that in there, and I'll try to scrape off any excess. Lock in, and I'm going to steal an idea from Jan Beta and use a couple clothespins just to hold that guy in place like so. I thought that was a pretty neat trick. Okay, I've turned our case around to maybe get you a little better look at this post we're working on. Remember, we've got our drill bit / alignment tool. I'm going to make sure that's a nice fit through there. You want it to be tight but not too tight, so I'll just run it around a few times to make sure I can get the drill bit pulled back out without moving its position. And we'll get some epoxy. Push our drill bit through, the drill bit into our little divot there. And push that right down. One thing you want to watch out for here is when you pull the drill bit out that you're pushing down firmly on the pad so it doesn't move, and then take your rag and wipe off any epoxy you got on the drill bit. Here is our case with the repaired rear tab. Let's open it up here. You can see the tab there in the back. Now this case looks like it had been pieced together at some point from different parts. It didn't fit real well to start with, and that right rear corner was loose. But we'll spin it around here and see that even the opposite corner didn't fit real well. But at least the other corner is tight now, and it fits pretty good. And see, it's not flopping around in the breeze anymore. And here is the case that has the fixed screw post. As you can see, the keyboard fits back in just fine, and the top cover closes down over the bottom cover just fine. And when the screw's installed, we get a nice factory looking seam. Here's our bottom cover. I set the circuit board back in it temporarily, and we'll have a look down through that hole. That's the one here in the center that we fixed. And we can see that our screw hole lines up with our replacement tab nicely. I hope this video is useful and shows you how to install the C64 Breadbin case saver repair kits. These are up on my website right now, and I'll put the link down below. I'll also link in the repair video that GadgetUK and Jan Beta did. If you haven't seen their channels before, I would highly recommend both. They're both really nice guys, and they do a lot of great repair videos on a wide variety of stuff. If you're a subscriber, thanks. I really appreciate it. If you're not, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and click on that rectangular subscribe button below, and then you'll see a bell-shaped icon. Go ahead and click on that guy too, and that'll let you know just as soon as I post a new video. If you have any questions or thoughts, just leave them down below in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. If you're in the US and you happen to have one of the Type 2B cases like GadgetUK had, please contact me. I'd like to get my hands on one to measure it up. Well, until next time, bye.